I consider it a real privilege to give my testimony. And my parents were believers, basically Lutheran at heart, and I'm thankful for growing up in a home of believers. And they were believers to their dying day. Like when I look over my life, I see I was pursuing God, but I also see God pursuing me. So I'll just zip over my life here quickly. My parents immigrated from Europe to Edmonton, Alberta when I was 4, almost 5 years old in 1952. My dad wanted to be a farmer, dreamed of a better life in Canada, farming. At age 8, my family went to a Lutheran church. I was always interested in what the pastor had to say. When I was 10 years old, my parents became Jehovah's Witnesses for a few years. And I would willingly attend Bible studies and sometimes go to their church on my own. I read their books and the Bible. I wanted to learn more about God. In grade 6, 7, and 8, my parents bought a farm about a half an hour north of Edmonton, and my new school wasn't very accepting. I spent many hours lonely and troubled, but I enjoyed the country and the countryside. I pulled closer to God in those years and often talked to God as I walked to and from school. The farm didn't work out, but it was still a big adventure for me, and we moved back to Edmonton for grade 9, which was my best year at school. I had a wonderful time. I was introduced to a whole new world of friends and sports. I was very tall and thin, and I enjoyed being on the volleyball school team. With a great bunch of guys, a great coach, and it seemed we won every game. We came in second in city championships. We almost won the city championships. Great bunch of guys, good coach. I also had a lot of Jehovah's Witness ideas in my head. In grade 10, God saw I needed help, and he sent me Peter Schultz. Peter and I were good friends. He was a solid Christian whose close walk with God absolutely amazed me. Peter helped me break free from the witnesses and my false indoctrination. One day, Peter gave me a book named 30 Years a Slave to the Watchtower. It's a classic. I read it and I broke free. I continued with volleyball school team in grade 10 and 11 for a lot of good times. I went to the German Church of God with Peter, and also to an apostolic church on my own with my first girlfriend. At 20 years old, I was still very immature, making bad decisions. I got married too young for all the wrong reasons. We separated when I was 29. The 9.5 years that I was with her, there wasn't very much God in my life. We argued a lot, but Peter kept in touch and initiated time together. After my ex-wife and I broke up, I drew closer to God again, and one day when I was 33 years old, I committed my life to God. All those years, Peter was telling me that he was praying for me. He did what he could to help me walk spiritually and initiated time together. He was a good listener. He asked questions carefully by showing me by example what it looks like living a life close to God. We had a lot of adventures together. We traveled together down to Winnipeg with his church choir. We drove down to Anderson, Indiana together. We often drove to the coast together. And I think he just wanted to spend time with me so he could talk to me about God. So after 3 years of dating different women, I remember very clearly praying and asking God to send me a good wife. And God answered my prayers. Within a few months, Peter and I went to the Edmonton Folk Festival, and we ran into some friends. And we were all talking, and all of a sudden, one of them turned behind her, and she motioned behind her, and she said, "I'd like you to meet my friend Debbie." And Debbie was my answer to prayers. And we've been together for 40-some years. Yeah. I asked God for confirmation about Debbie, and I felt an incredible peace. It's hard to. My whole body was warm. I felt this incredible peace, and God. I didn't hear any words, but God. I knew the words. The words were, "You and Debbie will be together." There it is. And then it happened just as God said it would. So we decided to move to the island together. When I said goodbye to Peter, I remember he said, "I wish I could come with you to continue to guide you spiritually and disciple you." But God had other plans. Debbie and I came to Vancouver Island, and we walked the West Coast Trail, where Debbie started talking to a chaplain. We were hiking, the chaplain, Padre, was hiking with some army guys, and we both got baptized on the West Coast Trail. It's interesting because I was interested in getting baptized, and I had a little book with me about getting baptized, so yeah, God made it happen. So Debbie and I were looking for a place to stay. We answered an ad in a newspaper, and it could have been anybody, but it turned out to be a strong Christian couple. We moved to a small farm in Sanishton, and Terry, the owner, won my trust. I admired his strong faith and work for the Lord. Terry and I had many good talks as we walked around the farm. We also had a wonderful experience with Terry and Rosemary invited us to their church, St. Stephen's Anglican, and they were so supportive. Ivan Footer, who's gone now, was just a wonderful pastor, and we got married there, supported by the church. It was just incredible. Peter came down. He was my best man. Terry was there. I remember that day, it just felt like God was right there. Like I felt like I could almost reach out and touch him. I was struggling to find a job. I was unemployed for a year. I was feeling broke. I didn't want to fix TVs and stereos, as my education was designing electronic circuits, and that's what I did in Edmonton. Would have been a better job. Fixing TVs and stereos was quite a step down. I also had a good friend that I trusted back in Edmonton, and he said that fixing TVs and stereos was a terrible job because of demanding customer service. I was applying for other jobs, but I was not applying for fixing TVs and stereos. One day, I was thinking about it, and again, this has only happened twice in my life. This is the second time, and again God spoke to me and gave me clear direction, the same incredible sense of peace and warmth in my body, and again I knew what God was telling me. Olaf, I want you to fix TVs and stereos. I was shocked. I was really shocked. It was the exact opposite of my own thinking and what I was trying to do. It wasn't long before a job at Soundhounds came along, and I worked as a service manager fixing TVs and stereos. And it gave me the experience. I had a real adventure there. It gave me the experience I needed to start my own business and make enough money to raise children and keep my wife home to be with the children. After 19 years, I closed the business. 4 children are expensive, and we hadn't saved much money, but God has always kept his word and provided for our every need. We lack nothing. So God was there for me at key turning points throughout my life. My walk with God has had its ups and downs, but the faith he gave me has never wavered. I look back and I see a thread of God's love and direction running through my life to this very day. How much does God love me to put Peter into my life? Peter lived a life dedicated to God. He lived very simply, passed out fruit to street people, lived close to the people. Peter, there's an outstanding Christian, and I passed away this last week, and he had no problem. He said he was ready to go. Yeah, so that's my story. Thanks for listening. Yeah, thanks.